Welcome to Austria, welcome to 1000 PS, and welcome to CFMOTO's new 450 NK.
Yes, folks, you're right in the middle of it instead of just being on the sidelines. You're part of the big 1000 PS Nakedbike Test 2024. It's one of the biggest productions we've ever done. 10 motorcycles are at the start. What's new this time is that we've put motorcycles from different displacement classes into a test environment. Why? This time, we want to take off those rose-tinted glasses a bit and see if the expensive motorcycles are really worth their money. How much better do these expensive motorcycles actually ride compared to the smaller, weaker and cheaper ones? And of course, we also wanted to see if the smaller motorcycles, which we often say ride super well and are sufficient, really hold up in a direct comparison. So, it's exciting for you. We have actually ridden 10 motorcycles in a direct comparison from different displacement and price classes, but all in the category of naked bikes. Overall, depending on the motorcycle, we had 10 to 12 test riders. Among them were Sonko, Amelie, Christoph Horvath, Fowley, Adam Child from England, Martin Bauer, Kurt Rubik and Ewald Baumgartner. This diverse group of riders brought a wide range of perspectives and experiences to the test, providing a comprehensive evaluation of each bike. Their varied backgrounds and riding styles enriched the feedback, making the test results more robust and insightful. Various colleagues from home and abroad contributed their diverse opinions. And, of course, what is also important is that we had challenging test conditions due to the varied weather conditions in spring 2024. We were glad to have IXS Clothing as a sponsor, supporting this whole series. This allowed us to quickly adapt to the various weather conditions. And this little bottle here often saved our day. Motorex ensured that the motorcycles looked better on camera than they did after the rain. Thanks to them for their active support. And the helmet isn't there by chance either. It was my favorite after the test. I tried various HJC helmets on the naked bikes, and I have to say it's a good combination. The RFA 71 Carbon offers a great mix of riding comfort and coolness because it has an integrated sun visor, it has good ventilation, is pleasantly quiet, yet still bold and cool enough to fit perfectly on a naked bike. We have created a score table, a ranking table for you, where we have all the motorcycles in a huge table and each of our test riders could cast their vote. It's interesting for you to see that, of course, the more expensive motorcycles, which were 3 times as expensive as the cheaper models in the test field, overall performed better. But you can now see the relationships for yourselves. Below, we have a link to our 1000 PS website where we have included the complete test table and you can click through the individual tests. And then you can see how each displacement category performed, but you can also see where your favorite, your preferred motorcycle may perform worse. For example, in terms of engine performance, or perhaps better in terms of riding comfort. This test table, this ranking table, is sorted in a ranking format, where a higher number indicates a lower ranking in that aspect, whereas a 1 indicates that in that specific aspect, the motorcycle was the best in the entire test field.
So let me bring you up to speed with CFMOTO. Bike is made in China, really pushing the brand really strongly. You can see these bikes sponsored in Moto 3, in Moto 2, and they're really pushing hard into the European market. Now, obviously the attractive part of the CFMOTO is price because it's considerably less than the competition. But does that affect the handling and performance? Well, we've had the opportunity to put the bike through its paces here in the hills in Austria. And you have to be impressed by the bike. Forget about the brand and the image and where the bike is made for a moment and just think about what the bike is like. It sounds really good. It's got a bit of character. It's got a bit of rev. It's got a bit of performance. For an A2 bike, I was actually surprised by the level of performance and character. Almost more than you'd get from the European and Japanese competition. The clocks are really impressive, full TFT clocks, look really neat, very simple, very easy to use. Seats very low, very narrow, it's very accessible. It's very impressive bike if you just forget about the branding. And to be honest, for a lot of new riders who this is aimed at in the A2 class, they don't know about KTM or Honda or Kawasaki. They're just buying a bike on price and what it can do. And on price and what it can do, then it does everything you'd expect a bike in this class to do. However, if you're slightly more experienced, you've been around bikes a little bit longer, then there are a few telltale signs that this has come from China and it's built for a price. Some of the switchgear looks like it was stolen from a car in the 80s. The tyres, I don't know where they're made or what the brand is. Now the tyres are perfectly fine. I had no moments and no slides. I had no accidents. I didn't fall off. But when you don't know the brand and you don't know the feel, it's a little bit unusual. When you ride with Bridgestone or Pirelli or Metzler, you kind of know what to expect. And with this, I was a little unsure. Also, the suspension is a little bit vague. It's not planted. I'm not 100% sure where the grip levels are. And when they're changing conditions, we had dry, we had wet, we had cold, I wasn't 100% where I wanted to be with this bike, and the brakes are a little bit weak. But then I'm kind of finding faults that no A2 rider should really find fault with. I've been riding bikes for 26 years and raced at the TT and at a decent level, so obviously I'm going to find faults with a bike that somebody who's just passed their test isn't. And if you just passed your test and you want a reasonably attractive, good sounding A2 bike, then the CFMOTO is ticking a lot of boxes and should have the competition worried. So I'm going to be really interested to see what my colleagues think from around Europe. So for me, I think it's a brilliant A2 bike, and for new riders it's going to be excellent. But as an experienced rider who rides maybe a little bit quick, then I do find a few niggles and a few faults. So let's see what they think, and let's see what you think. If you've got any questions, fire them below and we'll try and get back to you.
First and foremost, what immediately stands out on the CFMOTO is its incredibly good sound, which is exceptionally rare in its class. In today's times, I'm genuinely surprised every time a motorcycle has a really nice sound, and this one does. I also noticed that the riding position feels similar to Japanese motorcycles, so the suspension isn't bad either, but it's not perfect. You notice this especially when the bike starts to hop on various surfaces, so the damping isn't quite as smooth. Apart from the wonderful sound, the engine, I would say, is unremarkable overall. It doesn't produce any unpleasant vibrations. I also noticed that in certain riding situations, throttle control requires a bit of finesse. The power delivery is actually very linear. It also has a nice kick in the upper range that's enjoyable. It would be nice if it had a bit more power in the lower range, but it's hard to say because I haven't ridden it directly compared to Japanese twin cylinders. The gearbox is unremarkable, neither crisp nor clunky. It functions well. I also noticed that when riding straight, especially in urban areas, the bike feels slightly unstable. It tends to lean a bit to the left or right, but you only notice that when going straight. Then when you come to the curves, you notice that it steers incredibly easily and also behaves neutrally when leaning. The suspension also provides sufficient stability. Everything fits together wonderfully. What I like the least, however, is the brake. Not in terms of braking power. The braking power is good, but the modulation could be better because you don't really have any progression at the lever. And that's the case with both the front and rear brakes. In summary, I asked myself where I actually noticed that this is a Chinese motorcycle that's a bit cheaper than the others. It hardly stands out anymore. As I said, the quality of the suspension is not quite at the level of the Japanese ones. And then there are small things like the throttle grip having some play. It just doesn't feel good. And above all, there's a tire on it that is probably responsible for this tilting when going straight. I would change that relatively quickly and put on a proper tire because I'm sure that would help and perhaps even positively influence the damping behavior a bit. But all in all, the CFMOTO doesn't need to hide behind the Japanese bikes at all.
my view, with the 450NK, CFMOTO has not succeeded in offering a dramatic price advantage that would make someone choose this product because it's cheaper than the others. In other segments, such as adventure touring bikes, they do have a very attractive motorcycle with a price advantage. However, with the 450NK, it is priced at a level where, for example, my Triumph Speed 400, a more established brand, is even available at a more attractive price. I think the main argument could be that it is extremely accessible and easy to use because it is made for markets where people might be a bit more petite than we are. But the significant price advantage that many might expect from Chinese manufacturers is, in my opinion, not present here.
So the CFMOTO is, of course, price-wise interesting for a vehicle from China, in our opinion. And it's also important to note that it doesn't function like typical Chinese vehicles, but is a really good motorcycle. Technically speaking, we have a twin-cylinder engine that performs really well. It has an excellent running behavior, which was rather surprising. This engine can be said to drive well right from idle speed. This is not so common and not necessarily the case with other vehicles. The handling itself is quite stable, not exemplary, but at least okay for spirited riding. The suspension is on the softer side, which provides good overall riding comfort. The seating position is well designed, also more comfort oriented. The brakes are all right, but could be better. The front fork is quite simply built. You notice during heavy braking that it flexes slightly. We only have one brake disc at the front, which creates an asymmetrical load on the fork. During hard braking, you can feel it slightly distort. Overall, though, it rides very pleasantly. It's easy to gauge even when riding quickly. Despite the tires, which are actually no-name tires from the Chinese market, they are not entirely bad, nothing vibrates. We have a lot of play in the levers at the front, up and down, not lengthwise, but vertically. You notice that there's a lot of play in the up and down movement, but it's not seriously disturbing because it doesn't start vibrating or rattling, so it's not a problem. So one must say that it has fundamentally become a solid motorcycle that doesn't lag behind European or Japanese vehicles in terms of performance. It is on a similar level within the same class and is therefore also recommended in terms of price-performance ratio.
What really stood out to me at first was the sound. It was unusually full and really made an impression for an A2 bike, and that initially caused some astonishment among the riders. From a riding perspective, I found it very easy to handle. The weight was appropriate and the seating position is comfortable. I found the gear shifting to be really smooth. It was fun. If I had to name something negative, it would be that it felt a bit wobbly. It was so easy to maneuver, even in tight hairpin turns, that it almost had a wobbly feel. But overall, it is definitely a well-made motorcycle.
I must say that the price-performance ratio is very good because you get a lot of motorcycle for a good price. It has a balanced engine, performs well in the middle and top range, and has good brakes. For me, the seating comfort is excellent. I prefer being close to the handlebars, and it has superb handling. And I must say, if you don't necessarily prioritize having a specific brand, or it must be Japanese or European, and you don't care about the brand, then it is definitely a fantastic alternative.
What I found really cool was the look. I thought it was pretty stylish. A very cool gadget is the front fender because it's not curved downwards but slightly upwards. You rarely see that on a motorcycle. I found that pretty impressive. What's also quite cool is the sound. It's unusual for such an engine. It sounds relatively sharp for such a small engine. What I didn't like as much were the brakes. The brakes felt a bit spongy. During the braking phase, it didn't feel quite right. They didn't grip as well as I would have liked. But overall, I must say the price-performance ratio of this motorcycle is good. For a beginner, for an entry-level rider, I think it's quite a success.
So I hope you'd enjoyed the video. Hopefully the guys here at 1000 PS will invite me back to Austria, and hopefully the weather will be a little bit better. Don't forget to subscribe. If you've got any questions, get them below, and one of the team will get back to you.